That right there is one of the most interesting trucks of the year. I present to you the Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster, and it is unlike any other truck you can buy on the market today. First of all, what the heck is an Ineos? Well, it actually stands for something, as my buddy Alex will now tell you.
In-spec ethylene oxide and specialties. There you go.
What does that mean?
Blast from the past.
What is it? What are those things?
It's the basis of Ineos as a chemical company. That's where they came from.
Inspect?
Yeah. In-spec ethylene oxide and specialties.
Dude, that's wild.
Because that's what they did.
That is not a sexy name.
Ineos sounds better.
I'm going to do a really quick 15-second refresher on what Ineos is. British billionaire loved the old school Land Rover Defender. Land Rover stopped building it. He wanted to keep building it. Land Rover said no, so he said, screw you, I'm going to go do it myself. And he did. And these are vehicles for sale right now here in the US. Now, they launched with the standard Grenadier station wagon, and now there's a pickup version called the Quartermaster. Now, the station wagon and the pickup truck version, the Quartermaster, are mechanically very similar. The bones are largely the same. So underneath is an old school ladder frame with a solid rear axle and a solid front axle as well. One of the few vehicles sold today with a solid front axle. The truck is about a foot longer than the station wagon, so you're not gonna have the same breakover angle, but they both can be optioned with front and rear locking differentials. They can both be optioned with BFG KO2 tires from the factory. They both have underbody protection and recovery points front and rear, and even an optional integrated red winch, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna see how this Quartermaster tackles this rock. Ineos did fly me out to Palm Springs, and they did choose a trail, so I'm not sure what kind of terrain we're gonna tackle today. There we can see that front end articulation and some of the rear end articulation. Nothing too crazy though. The truck is able to crawl through there. I think they had us turn rear lockers on. Now, underbody protection, which is great. You can also option them with rock rails, but one thing I am noticing about the pickup version, quite a large tush. So kind of some compromise there on the departure angle, but did handle that rock, no problems. Here comes the station wagon, about to tackle the same kind of terrain that the truck just went through. Slightly better turning circle on the station wagon as well. And you can really see the departure angle difference, right? That's one of the big advantages of getting the SUV version, is that the tail is practically right there at the rear wheel. You can see that rear end articulation as that solid axle. That mechanical locker is engaged, and off he went. Pretty cool to see the difference in terms of the angles there, truck to SUV. This video is brought to you by Onyx Off-Road, our #1 go-to off-road trail navigation software. It integrates with Apple CarPlay so you never get lost, always know where you're going, and can know what to expect out on the trail. Check out Onyx Off-Road and use the link below for a discount. The Quartermaster is engineered very differently than just about every truck on the market, and it drives very differently than just about any truck on the market. So first of all, the seating position. You sit very upright and close to the windshield, a lot like you would in a Gladiator, except it's a much more comfortable experience. So the seats compared to the Jeep seats are far better, and you can raise them even higher. The whole vehicle is actually super tall. You don't realize how tall it is until you pull up to something like an F-150 or a Silverado, and you're pretty much at eye level with them. There's some parking garages even where this vehicle won't fit into, even on the stock 31-inch tall tires. That's how tall it is. Now that engine, so 3-liter turbocharged inline 6, and I know a lot of folks are skeptical of the longevity and reliability of this engine. So we put 4,000 miles on ours, not a ton, but there's a lot of folks that have put 10, 20,000 plus miles on theirs. They've been all around the world. And so far, people seem to be pretty impressed with the reliability. I follow the forums really carefully, and I haven't seen any horror stories of things catastrophically going wrong. It seems to be a pretty stout engine, as you'd expect for an engine used by Toyota in the Supra. It's a very satisfying engine to drive. On paper, 282 horsepower, not a ton. You know, the vast majority of mid-sized trucks will have more power than the Grenadier, but it's the power delivery that makes this engine stand apart. So you've got a huge push of low-end torque right at the base of the power band, and then it continues to pull hard and hard into the higher RPMs, and it's kind of a screamer, as you'd expect from a BMW engineered engine. yeah, it's a really good engine. My favorite part about it is when you're climbing steep grades, the transmission is not quick to downshift. Instead, it'll build boost. It'll spool that turbo up. So if you're going up a steep grade in 7th gear, it may not jump down to 4 or 5 like in a typical 8-speed. It'll actually hold 7 and build boost until the very last minute when it will downshift. It drives a lot like a diesel actually, which is what you want off-road. Now the throttle programming, especially in the off-road mode, nice and progressive and soft and linear. It's not too jumpy. And you get that impression a lot from the whole vehicle off-road. So recirculating ball steering, right, is an area where a lot of folks have criticized the Grenadier because it is slow, but more importantly, it doesn't self-center. So when you're really making a lot of tight maneuvers, there's a lot of arm movement. But the reason they do that is because when you bring it out to the desert, we're going 25 miles an hour here. If I were to hit a rock, in a lot of rack and pinion setups, it's going to whip that wheel sideways and potentially even break a thumb, like in the older non-power steering setups. This is very linear, progressive, and forgiving, so you can hit rocks and stuff and not end up with hurt digits. Now, as we increase our speed here, 33 on this kind of washboarded out road, we do start to experience some of the downside of the solid axle design. It's a very rugged design, offers a lot of articulation, but it is a little unforgiving in washboard environments. It is a coil spring setup, which is great, and we are aired up. The Ineos team didn't decide to air down on this trip, so that would certainly help quite a bit, but it does get a little boundy as things start to get a little aggressive, and it is possible to run out of clearance on travel at least fairly quickly. It doesn't have like jounce bumpers like some other mid-sized trucks do. But this is not really what this truck was intended to do, right? This was a truck built for overlanding. That's what the Ineos team will tell you. It's built to travel long distances through remote areas at moderate speed, and they say it's overbuilt for that kind of terrain. So the big rub on the Grenadier Trailmaster has to be the price. It starts at $86,900. However, the one that I'm driving today is $101,000, which is by far the most expensive mid-size truck, period. I mean, it's almost double the cost of a Ford Ranger Raptor. Does it have double the value? Well, that's what we're going to investigate. Let's start off by talking about the engineering behind the Grenadier Quartermaster. So a lot of the engineering was done by a company called Magna, which is the largest engineering firm you may never have heard of, but they do work for just about every major OEM, and they also build in partnership with another company vehicles like the Supra, the G-Wagon. They're a big deal. So when they put their name on something, it usually is pretty good. A lot of the components are going to be familiar to those involved in the auto industry as well. So the engine, it actually says it up here, is a BMW B58. Transfer case is a Tremec transfer case, and then the axles, a little bit more foreign to us Americans, but it uses Carraro axles, which is an Italian manufacturer. They primarily do like truck, bus, and tractor axles, so they're really kind of beefy and over-engineered. Now the bed, it's about a 5-foot bed, and the width is impressive because, keep in mind, the Quartermaster total width is closer to a full-size truck than a mid-size truck. However, not super wide between the wheel wells, and the spare tire intrudes into the bed space. So they mounted the spare in the bed instead of underneath. And I'm kind of curious as to why, because there's a lot of space underneath. You can actually see the exhaust is tucked way in front there by the rear axle. So kind of wondering why they didn't just stick the spare tire in the bed, but there you have it. It's here in the bed instead of under the bed. A lot of accessories you can get back here, like you can get these bars with the little kind of headache rack design. You can get MOLLE panels in the doors for mounting stuff, so that's cool. The other cool thing is the towing capacity. So the hitch is located, of course, back here by the rear bumper, and the 7-pin tucked up nice and away so you're not going to scrape it on the rocks. That's your NATO port if you wanted to power like a winch, but over 7,700 pounds of towing. So in the mid-size class, that's right up there at the top. And let's check out the payload numbers on this particular specification. We've got GVWR of 7716, and the payload capacity on this one of 1,534. So a lot of payload for the mid-size category. But once again, it's kind of an interesting tweener truck because lengthwise, oh, for sure, it's in line with like a Colorado. Widthwise, it's definitely quite a bit longer. Stepping inside the Quartermaster, let's see what this interior has to offer. Now, lots of interesting design elements, starting with the 2-spoke steering wheel in this saddle brown with your little positioning center there. That looks quite nice, feels really good, nicely bolstered, and there's a little toot horn here, so you can get the warning, the attention of people in front of you without blaring the main horn. Now, beyond that, the majority of controls here across the center stack are going to be physical buttons and knobs. So for the climate control, the temperature adjustment, the heated seats, even the volume control, right? Start, stop, all of these are physical knobs, which I really appreciate and I really like. Now, the rest of the controls are up here in the main screen, and you might notice there is no instrument cluster in front of the driver. Instead, you have to look over to the middle for the main screen, and on the left panel, being a left-hand drive car, we see, our vitals, so speed, tack, parking position, that kind of thing, fuel range, distance, all of that there. And then on the right side, this is where we have our audio controls, Apple CarPlay integration, and off-road modes. And the off-road modes do tell you some really good stuff, obviously latitude, longitude, altitude, but it also shows you some vital temps, not only for gearbox transfer case, but also pressures and tire temps, which I really, really like. The screen is okay. You get used to it. It's a little cumbersome. It does have Apple CarPlay, which is how I like to use it. Just stick it in Apple CarPlay and let it do its thing. Now, beyond that, we do have a compass here. Looks great. Vents. We talked about the major controls. Down here, we have the kind of goofy looking BMW shifter, back reverse, forward for reverse, push for park. We have our transfer case selector to go from high to low range and lock up the center differential, which you do like that. And then you also have a way to control the screen with the little knob if you don't want to go and touch and kind of fingerprint up your screen. Now, up top, this is the coolest part of the Grenadier and the Quartermaster. First of all, optional roof panels, which you can push up, offer a little bit of ventilation. They look great. And we also have a ton of overhead switches. Now, you can spec this vehicle with pre-wired, pre-fused, basically accessory panels that have pigtails throughout the vehicle ready to be wired into, and then you just simply hop in, flick on your lights, no need to do any crazy wiring, and the fuse panel lives underneath the rear seat. You can also option this vehicle with a 500 amp NATO plug in the rear, so you can have a rear mounted winch. It's very cool, feel good. And then diff locks over here, off-road mode. Off-road mode does some great stuff, like it disables the seatbelt chime. So if you're out on the trail, you want to get out and spot some stuff, drive slowly, it's not going to be beeping at you. Parking sensors, backup camera disabled, which is kind of dumb, but that's what it does. And the wade mode, similar kind of thing, disables the parking sensors, also turns off the fan on the engine so you're not spraying water into your intake. We have our assistance buttons here for hill descent control, ESC off, light levels, auxiliary lights, and then some other basic controls up front there. Now, a lot of this interior feels really premium, like the seats, right? Seat design, two-tone, white and black in this one, made by Recaro. Really a good seat, and everything you touch, all the touch points feel quite nice. It's the features you're missing at this vehicle's price point, which I believe, let's check it out, as equipped, $101,000, that I think US consumers are going to struggle with a little bit. So we do have heated seats, but no ventilated seats. We do have cruise control, but no adaptive cruise control. No blind spot monitoring. The seats are still manually operated, even at $101,000. Now, Ineos will tell you, well, this is a vehicle built on purpose, it's rugged, it's utilitarian, it's meant to come out here and go explore, and who needs power seats? And I would agree, except at $101,000, you're not only more expensive than any mid-sized truck out there, you're approaching not only Raptor levels, but Raptor R levels. And for that, you get supercharged V8, ventilated seats, and a bunch of other stuff that the Ineos just simply doesn't have. So I think that's going to be a tough sell to a lot of US consumers at this price point. Let's talk rear seat room, because this is where things really start to fall apart for the Grenadier Quartermaster. Now, first things first, the floor is incredibly high. The roof really not that much, so it's actually really easy to bonk your head. And then the rear seat room and comfort is just not very good. So here's my driving position at 6 feet tall. Knees are pretty well jammed into the seat in front of me. The headroom is awesome. The visibility out is great because you have that command seating position where you sit up higher than the front seats. But I mean, they're just bolt upright. Really an uncomfortable rear seat. It's small. I know mid-sized trucks have small rear seats, but this is very, very uncomfortable. Now, underneath the rear seat, we can fold it forward, just like that. There we can see our fuse panel, and then underneath this one is going to be our JBL subwoofer which is pretty basic, actually. It's a pretty good audio system considering, but pretty basic. And then you've got, you know, fuse panel for some of your auxiliary stuff. So not a great rear seat area. There are USB ports and air vents. So if you've got furry friends back here, they will stay cool, but it's not a super usable rear end. So there are a couple other annoyances in the Grenadier Quartermaster. All Grenadiers, even sold here in the US, have a speed limit warning, where every time you start the truck, it'll beep at you if it goes over the speed limit that it detects. And it's not really a beep, it goes... It's this really annoying click, and it's either a 10-step process to turn it off or a 3-step. And we've gone on and on about this, and I'm sure the Ineos PR folks are sick of hearing me talk about it, but it is really such a deal breaker for so many buyers out there. You know, I'm young and fairly adaptable, and even I go crazy having to listen to this thing and go through either a 10 or 3-step process to turn it off. Now, they assure me a fix is coming. They keep telling me that, but this thing, at least the station wagon, has been on sale for 8 months now, and it still has it. There is no update available yet, and it doesn't do over-the-air updates, so you have to bring it into one of 20 vehicles between the US and Canada to get it manually flashed. That is just not good enough. Before I would consider buying this, I need that update to come. It is so frustrating. All right, so here's what I'm talking about with the speed limiter. So you're cruising along, 54, speed limit here is like 55. Go over it just a little bit. Maybe you're not paying attention. Maybe you're trying to get somewhere a little quicker. And this starts clicking at you. And it doesn't stop until you slow down or until you go over the speed limit again. And it's so annoying. The overall driving experience of the Quartermaster, it's pretty similar to a Gladiator. Probably not much of a surprise. The Gladiator, like the Quartermaster, is a station wagon adapted into a truck. They both have solid axles and recirculating ball. This vehicle is more comfortable. It's quieter in here. It's actually quite a bit quieter in here in dirt roads when compared to the station wagon. So all of these are good things. It's too stiff. The ride quality is too stiff. And yeah, especially over washboards, it's not a great experience. However, on-road, I think it's better than a Gladiator. Off-road, I don't think it's better than a Gladiator, because that also has dual lockers, but it also has a disconnectable sway bar, which this thing desperately needs. But that's the closest driving comparison I can make. So we're here with Alex Dykes, Auto Buyer's Guide. And Alex,
Hey everybody!
why is the Quartermaster so expensive?
Well, it's called the chicken tax and it has nothing to do with chickens, well, anymore. I will let you guys all Google the origins of the name, but in essence, anything that's a truck like this or a work van, you have to pay a 25% import tariff if it's not built in the US, Canada, or Mexico.
So how does Toyota and all these other foreign makers get around the chicken tax?
You know, they make them in the US, Canada, or Mexico. That's pretty much it.
And where is this made?
This one is made in France, which is not the US, Canada, or Mexico, sadly. Although I do love their croissant.
So the big question is, Alex, would you pay, depending on the spec, around 100 grand for the Quartermaster truck?
I would not, but you know what? I would pay 75.
Huh. Funny how that works. 25% less than 100, 75. So that chicken tax is what kills it for you.
Yeah, you know what? That's also why we can't get any of those other cool, absolutely adorable European trucks like the Volkswagen ones, the ones from South America, etc., that get really good fuel economy. Can't have any of them for the same reason.
Perfect.
But you know what? You're in a luxury truck, I guess you can, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we're like almost to Raptor R levels of pricing in this truck.
That's exclusivity, my friend. That's what that price means. That means that I can afford one of these, and you peasants, you can't pay the chicken tax. Just eat chicken. Don't get one of these.
Here is the rub for me on the Quartermaster. I really do like the standard Grenadier, the standard station wagon configuration. You know, it kind of competes with vehicles like the Lexus GX, Land Rover Defender, and it's such an interesting experience compared to those vehicles. It would probably get my money. It has solid axles, front and rear lockers, which the GX and the Defender don't have. I mean, it's really cool. The problem is, when you convert it to a truck, Now you're competing with trucks manufactured and built for American consumers. Then you're opening yourselves up to the like of the Gladiator, Rubicon, and Mojave, the Ranger Raptor, the Canyon AT4X, Colorado ZR2, and other North American built trucks like the Tacoma TRD Pro. And this vehicle is good, but it's not in some cases $30,000 better than the top dog off-road trims of those competitor manufacturers. It just simply is not. I think it's awesome. I love the look. I like the straight six. I think the solid axle thing is cool, but I mean, the Americans know how to build trucks. We've been doing it for nearly a century. We've really perfected it. And when you're selling a quirky British safari wagon to Americans, that's cool. It's unique. When you're selling a truck to Americans for, in some cases, 20, 30 grand more than some of the best trucks ever made in this class, it just doesn't stack up. It's down on power compared to some of the top dog off-road trucks. It's down on tire size. It is up on towing capacity. It does have a lot of towing capacity. But would you pay in some cases over 100 grand for 700 pounds of towing capacity? No, because you would go out and you'd buy a Power Wagon or a Rebel or a Tremor or a Raptor. This is what is tough about this truck for me. I like the quirky British off-road thing. Sue me, I'm weird, I really do. But when you're selling a truck in America, it has to be good, and it has to be good value, and it has to be better than other mid-sized trucks in the category. And this vehicle just simply is not. It's awesome, it's cool, it's a cool novelty. If I had a ton of money, you bet this would be in my driveway as a fourth truck, but it just isn't good enough to compete with some of those other mid-sized trucks out there. I'm sorry, it's not. Rant over. Goodbye.